give me one shot here on a blue chip stock, believe me, Kevin, the only problem you're gonna have is that you didn't buy more.
Nobody knows if the stock is going to go up, down, sideways, or in circles.
What's good, NBA draft fans? Your boys are back. The Wolves of Ball Street, the Draftdaq NBA Draft Podcast. My name's Corey Tulliva, and I am here, as always, with my co-host, Albert Garbage Time Gim. Albert, how we doing today, brother?
What's going on, everybody? It is good to be back on the Draftdaq podcast. Not that I've gone anywhere, but it's good. We've got a special episode today. Our guest decided to just, I don't know what he's doing, intimidating us with this Rams hat that he's got on. He's a champion. He's feeling himself. But we're really excited to have one of the newest members of our No Ceilings family. So I'm ready to rock.
Yes, sir. We're talking about our brother at No Ceilings, Stephen Gillespie. Stephen, you finally made it on the Draftdaq. Pleasure to have you.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a dream come true. I thought Albert was going to be nicer to me on my first time here, but you know, it is what it is. I guess if we're cracking jokes already, then I am really a part of the family, so that makes me feel better. How y'all doing?
You are a part of the family. I think we're doing well, and we're excited to be talking NBA draft. It's March. We got crazy upsets happening. I mean, it's what more can you ask for, right? Today, we are going to cover somebody who were they upset in the tournament, Baylor? I don't know. I don't know if it was an upset. Could go either way. I think they were the favorites, but we're covering Baylor forward Jeremy Sochan. 18 years old, 19 on draft night, 6'9", 230 pounds with a reported 7-foot wingspan. Put up 9.2 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, 1.8 assists to 1.6 turnovers, 0.7 blocks, 1.3 steals in 25 minutes per game off the bench. Modest numbers, but we'll get to that. He shot 47.4% from the field, 29.6% from three. Woof. 58.9% from the free throw line. Double. Woof. True shooting percentage of 54.6. He had a PER of 19.6. Does have the coolest hair in the 2022 draft by far. Not even a contest. Preseason draft stock. Your boy was unlisted. He was not a prospect coming into the draft. The December update, unlisted. Even in December. Not until January was he listed on the Draftdaq when he came in at 32.
Wow.
Currently, ESPN has Sochan at 16. The Athletic has him at 12. Tankathon has him at 17. Basketball News at 13. Bleacher Report at 21. The Ringer at 9. No Ceilings at 15. An average stock price of 14.7. Also currently ranked 14 on the March Draftdaq update that we just released at No Ceilings. So, Stephen, as our guest, I am going to ask you, is Jeremy Sochan's stock price too high, too low, or is it just right at 14.7?
I think it's just right, man. I look at my board. I looked at the composite big board for No Ceilings, but just for myself personally, I have him right at 14. I could maybe be talked up to about 12, 11 at the absolute highest. But right now, the players that I have in front of them, I feel pretty confident that they're actually either better bets long-term, like have higher ceilings, or they're already producing at a higher level. So for me, fellas, I think that he's just right centered around 14.
Albert, how about you?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think on my personal board, I have him at 16 right now, which is flexible. I have guys moving all over my board at all. He could be number one tomorrow for no reason. Who knows? But I like. Also, I wanted to ask you guys: is it Sochan or is it Sochan? What's the? I've heard it both ways. So
there's truly no way of knowing.
So I heard on the Fran Fraschillo's World of Basketball, he pronounced it Sochan, but I've heard it like throughout the tournament that it's Sochan. So I don't know who to trust anymore.
We're going to say it each and every way. We're going to do it every way that possible.
I say we go rogue. Maybe this is like a Charles Barkley style type of thing, but we just call him Sochan and just say F it. But no,
I'm
I
gonna
will
say
go Sochan.
Sochan.
Funny quirk, guys, that you have to know about Stephen Gillespie. He loves to make fun of my typos in our group chat, and it makes me laugh a lot. But okay, so I think 14 is just fine. I have him at 16. I feel like he might be moving up my board, a guy that I like a lot. So sitting at 14, I have no big gripes with that one.
And funny enough, I have him at 12 right now. The last time I did my board,
Wow.
I'm no mathematician, but I think if you average out all of our rankings, we get to 14. I do think I'm going to have him higher on my next board, though. So part of
Okay.
me feels like I don't think it's egregious that he's at 14 by any means. I think it feels right, but I do think at the end of this cycle, I think he's going to be the big riser. I think that as we break down, I think maybe I'll go into deeper why I think he's going to rise. But I think this is a kid who right now is sitting late lottery ish, but I think he's going to ultimately end up inside the top 10 and maybe even higher come draft night. Albert,
If I could ask a question real quick,
sure.
because I want to see where you guys are on him in relation to a guy like Dyson Daniel, because I think that they play different positions, but I think they at their respective positions, I think they bring a lot of versatility, defense, what have you. Where do you guys have him in relation to Dyson Daniel?
I have Daniels pretty close. I think he might be 13. They're right there. I think they do offer a lot of similar things to a basketball team. I think they obviously like Daniels is more guardy and Suhan's more big wingy. But I do think the way that their games complement really, I think you can put them on any team and they can play a role there. I think they offer similar things in that respect.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I have Daniel's 11th on my board. Now, of course, we did these boards before the tournament, but still, I actually don't mind having Daniels at 11 on my board because I love Daniel so much. For me, I think at least right now, I'm not thinking about trajectory. I think right now, I feel like Daniels is the better shooter, but that is not me saying that I think he'll always be a better shooter than Sohan. But just right now, I think he is. But as Corey mentioned before, as he's going to move Sohan up his board, I'm definitely going to move Sohan up my board too. So yeah, I think that I'm kind of around that same area.
Albert,
Right on.
if you have $10 to invest in Jeremy Sohan, Tari Eason, and Kendall Brown, how would you spend your $10?
Perfect. Let's do $6 Suhan, $3 Eason, $1 Kendall Brown. People will hate me for it. I know Rucker especially will hate me for it. I'm not a big Kendall Brown guy, man. And look, the great part of this episode is that we got to watch a lot of Baylor, and I watched a ton of Baylor, and I'm sorry, I do not love Kendall Brown, and I have a lot of questions about Kendall Brown. I don't like his socks. I don't like.
It's one of the more appealing parts of his game.
I don't love a lot of the stuff. A lot of his limitations, they bother me. Of course, I mean, look, he can work on things, get better, but I love Sohan a lot more than I like Kendall Brown. And Rucker, if you're listening to this, I love you, but that's just where I'm at right now.
Sohan and Kendall Brown are both very young prospects in this draft. Steven, $10. Sohan, Eason, Brown. Hit me.
Well, first off, I think it's cool that you brought up how they're both young. But if you watch both of them play, you would assume that Jeremy Sohan is much older than Kendall Brown when you watch them play. But you guys have gotten to know me a little bit over the past couple of weeks. You know where my money's going. At the top, I'm giving $5 to Tari Eason. You guys know that I'm a really big fan of him. I'm giving $3 to the Jeremy Sohan fund, or Suchan. And then Kendall Brown, I'm giving $2. So not as hateful as Albert is for Kendall Brown, but there's a lot of concern for me with him in his game.
Likewise, myself, I'm actually going $6 Sochan, $4 Eason, and I'm not investing in Kendall Brown at all
Whoa!
with my $10.
You get no money. Wow.
I was gonna give Kendall Brown like quarters, but like I didn't want to feel that nasty. But
Did you break a one?
insert Willy Wonka, you get nothing clip. Yeah. So, and look, I actually, it's not that I don't like Kendall Brown. I think that his game is going to be conducive to pretty easily sliding into a whole bunch of different contexts because he doesn't need the ball. He should theoretically be a good defender. He's obviously a terrific athlete, also cool hair, young. The shot doesn't look broken by any means. But I just, there's so many guys in this class I'd rather bet on, even if Kendall Brown ends up as a better player than, you know, a bunch of the prospects in the class. I would just rather bet on the potential of some of the other guys and gun for guys like Sochan and Eason as those big switchy wings. And I think it's kind of funny that Kendall Brown and Sochan's draft stock has kind of gone in opposite directions. Now, Brown was kind of, you know, treading the line of the first round when the draft cycle started. You know, he was back end top 30, but now he's kind of trending. He jumped up to like 6, 7 at some point, like top 10 guy. And then now he's kind of settling back in at like 17, you know, outside of the lottery. Whereas Sochan was nowhere to be found and kind of slowly crept up and kind of took his spot. But so I do think that's interesting, especially because they play on the same team and, you know, kind of similar roles. And Sochan coming off the bench, you know, ultimately is one of those. Eason as well, you know, came off the bench. It's, you know, you look at that as sometimes as a black mark, but as we've seen with guys like Scotty Barnes and Patrick Williams, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Let's hit the scouting report.
Okay.
I woofed a couple of times earlier. We're going to start with his shooting. So, Albert, with percentages of about 30% from 3 and sub 60% from the free throw line, is there any salvaging his jump shot?
Big time. I think big time. And I don't know where I'll end up. Majority, minority, I don't know. I think there's a lot there. Especially because when you watch him operate in the mid-range, you're like, oh, yeah, nice. You know? I think free throws, like 3 attempts per game. I mean, that's not 13 a game. That's 3 a game. He did take 2.7 threes per game at 29.6%. Not fantastic. Like the numbers suck, right?
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, Corey, he came off the bench. You know, even what you just mentioned with him and Kendall Brown kind of playing the same role and kind of overlapping and stuff like that. I just don't think it was the absolute best scenario for Sochan for his freshman year. But I mean, eye test wise, I'm watching him shoot. I'm like, cool. I'm fine with it. You know, I don't know. Maybe there's like a Euro bias in my brain, like because he's from like the UK and Poland, or I actually don't remember where exactly he's from. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, like cool. Like Luol Deng could shoot, and he's from the UK, so Sochan will be fine too. It's exactly, yeah. So I don't know. I liked it a lot. Not that I'm like in love with his jump shot. Please don't get me wrong. It is not a perfect jump shot at all. He needs a lot of work, but I'm optimistic is where I'm at.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. He's very far away. You know, it's funny when I first started watching him play, you know, he's a slow burn kind of guy. You know, I think that when ultimately he gets drafted to a situation and, you know, as like a casual fan, the first thing you're going to do is like run to YouTube and check out like the highlight tape of the guy that you drafted. Right. And I don't think he's going to have this like super flashy highlight tape with like cool off the bounce shooting and like monster, you know, like just bouncy dunks. Like, he's not going to have that cool ball is life type mixtape. And when I watched him initially, I'm like, because he was getting a lot of hype at one point. Like, you know how these things work on draft Twitter. Like, one prospect will just blow up one week and everybody's got to get in on the conversation. That's how social media works, as it should. And I remember I was at a Rutgers game. I think we were with Nathan from Draft Deeper. I think we were going to see Keegan Murray and Iowa take on Rutgers, and we were watching pregame, and I was like, so what's the deal with this with Sochan? Like, everybody's loving this dude, and he seems fine. I was like, the shot is kind of ugly looking. I was like, what's going on there? And it wasn't so much the jumper for me. I think the jumper is fine. I mean, it's not like beautiful, the form or anything by any means, but I think that the free throw form for me at one point, I was like, oh, that looks like broken. And I think it's looked less broken as the season's gone on. And I do actually think that like the 3-point shot, while he doesn't have like great touch, like there's a lot of like banked in threes, it seems like, I do think it looks okay. So I'm encouraged that he's willing to take them, because one of the things with Kendall Brown is that he's not willing to take them. He's very hesitant to let it fly. And I do like that Jeremy is kind of like okay with, okay, I might miss this, but like I need to be a threat shooting the ball so the defense respects me. So maybe I can drive and attack a closeout, because if you're going to put it up, defenses are typically going to get out and cover you, especially the college level. Like, how many coaches are just like, hey, let that guy shoot it, leave him open. Like a guy like Sochan, like he's always going to be somewhat covered, and that's going to open up the rest of his game. So I like that he was willing to shoot it. I think he's definitely a few years away, but I think that as we've seen, like at the NBA level, it's easy to, I mean, not easy, you have to work hard at it, but it's common to improve your jumper to an adequate level. And I foresee that with Sochan. Steven, what are your impressions of his shooting?
Yeah, so in preparation for the show, I went back and I watched the UNC game, and that wasn't the best performance by Sochan or Brown. And in particular, I was watching the shot, and I just couldn't help but thinking, like, why is this not going in? Because as you were talking about, Corey, as the season has progressed, it looks like he's cleaned up his mechanics a ton. But it's also crazy that once the shot was the motion was cleaned up, the percentage has gone down. I believe at one point during the season, he was upwards around like 35% shooting from deep. So I still think that he's trying to find the most compact and efficient, shooting motion. And then obviously trying to improve the efficiency with that. But I was watching that UNC game, and I didn't see anything in particularly wrong with the motion. Now, I don't know how nerdy this is, Corey. You might appreciate this, but when you watch his feet on a jump shot, I feel like you can tell whether or not he's going to miss before it even leaves his hand if you just look at the way that his feet are. And it's just funny to me how this seems to be the draft class where shooting efficiency just is not the name of the game for a lot of people that you're wanting to effectively spread the floor. So you're kind of having to look harder and see what you can glean from it. And I buy the jump shot improving, because at less than 30%, it's going to be hard for it to get worse, right? So from what we've seen earlier, he seems like he's a hard worker. I typically don't bet against work ethic, so I feel like Sochan's going to be able to clean it up. And it's easy to say, like, well, if he only shoots 37, 38%, but I mean, at his position, what I project him to do at the next level, if he can be 33, 34% from deep, just be serviceable, I think that's achievable, and I think that would just serve him well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think he has to get to that point, and I think we've seen cases over and over again of questionable shooters who eventually do become adequate shooters in the NBA level, just spotting up, playing off superstars, not necessarily creating off the bounds, getting their own shot, but being enough a floor spacer to be a threat. And Albert, as you mentioned, he's shown a little bit of that self-creation where he'll, he uses his little spin move where he drives left and then quickly turns right. And he's got that little like fadeaway that I like.
Yeah. I mean, Corey, I love that you brought up the spin move because he loves a good spin move. I mean, watching Sochan play, I randomly thought of this. Like, I had a friend back in college. Like, anytime we'd go to a new diner, he would have to try tuna melt. Like, that was like his thing. Like, if we're at a new diner we've never been to before, we have to try a tuna melt. And for me, I'm always
Solid
asking for
choice.
I'm either asking for a cherry Coke or a cream soda because I want that syrup, you know.
Mm.
Sochan loves a good freaking spin. That guy loves to spin either way, left or right, and he spams the hell out of a spin. But I think that's where I got most intrigued by him offensively, at least. Actually, no, that's a lie because we're going to talk about his passing, and I think the passing is what actually interested me the most. But he spams the hell out of a spin. He's aggressive. I like what you said, Corey. That was one of my first things about him. I wrote that he is not shy at all. He's no fear. He takes a lot of tough shots. He likes playing in the big moments. Doesn't seem like he gets rattled. And I like that a lot. And so if we take confidence plus work ethic plus cleaning up mechanics, you guys talked about the footwork, all that stuff, it gets me excited about his potential, at least scoring wise.
Yeah, and at the college level, even without like the threat of the jumper, like he has been able to attack and get to the rim, whether it's off the spin or not. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that like he's a strong kid. He's fucking big. He's big as shit on the floor, and he looks it like when he's like, you know, we'll talk about his defense later, but when he is like getting long and just you see his full wingspan and he's like upright, like you're like, wow, like this kid's huge. Steven, what do you think about his self-creation ability and how it'll translate to the next level?
I didn't like it at first. Sochan was a guy that I needed to grow on me throughout the season. He was one of these guys that where I put him lower than I probably should have based on the production that I was seeing from him throughout the year. And his creation was one of the biggest things that I was like, I need to see this on a consistent basis. I need to see how functional it is and how it projects to the next level. I still don't know if the way that he gets to the basket is going to translate that well because his handle in college is fine, but we know at the position that he's going to be playing at the next level, the defense is going to get stronger. They're going to be, you know, more athletically laterally. And I think that the way that he chooses to attack the basket, it's going to be more difficult for him, obviously. So if that's the case, the creation has to come from off-ball movement. It's got to come from the pick and roll, pick and pop, and it's got to come from when there's an action happening away from him. He's got to be able to pick his spots and do it timely and effectively. So the way that we're seeing it done now, it's fine because Baylor needs him to do it, and it's easy for him to do it now. I'm just curious as to how exactly that translates to the next level. But from the other areas of his game that I was just saying that I think that he needs to take to the NBA level, from what we have seen from him, I think that it's doable for him. But Baylor doesn't necessarily use him as like as a roll man or a pop guy either. So you kind of have to look through that a little bit and see other aspects of his game and how you think that projects. But overall, I think he'll be okay. It's just going to look a little different.
I actually like how Baylor used him because I do think that sometimes they did let him be a screener and let him pop, let him roll. You know, it wasn't like high volume because he's not, you know, necessarily a traditional big man.
Right.
But I mean, Baylor played so much similarly to last season. They played so much through their guards that, you know, guys like Brown and Sochan to actually be effective without, you know, either backdoor cutting or just standing in the corner, you know, they were going to have to get creative and be passers. And I think that Sochan offers a lot of versatility at the next level with, you know, more spacing, more creative offenses where I think he's going to be used as both like a screener and as a ball handler out of the pick and roll eventually. You know, it's funny. I went back and not only watched his film from Baylor, but I also watched some of his tape from Germany and some of the FIBA stuff. And he was like a little leaner then. I mean, he was younger, so obviously, you know, that typically happens.
That's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just science for all of you out there. And he was like, he looked like kind of shifty in certain circumstances, and there was a lot of like ball handling stuff that intrigued me. And I, I think that, sometimes in college, in a position like him as a freshman on a team with some veteran guards, like, your coach isn't going to let you go cook and do stuff. And I think that at the NBA level, and look, as a rookie, he's probably not going to be allowed to just go out and do stuff either necessarily, depending on where he gets drafted, unless he goes to like a full on rebuilding team that's just trying to like experiment and see what he can and can't do and doesn't care about the result, just the process. I think there's some stuff there that is going to allow him to be a screener because he's huge, as we mentioned, and then play out of the short roll and use his passing that I think is an asset.
I agree.
I don't think he's Scotty Barnes, as a passer. Scotty Barnes was special, and that was apparent. I think in his episode when we recorded it last cycle, Albert, I think I even said like he might be the best passer in the draft.
You did.
In a draft with Cade Cunningham and Sharif Cooper, I had some questions about whether he was going to be, allowed to fully use his passing, which has been answered by the genius of Masai and the Toronto Raptors. But I don't think he's that. But I do think he offers some intriguing versatility out of the pick and roll in the short roll, which is something that is a necessity for his position now. So,
absolutely,
Albert, you mentioned it. What was impressive about his passing?
I specifically like the interior passing. I really like that he would take his man on the block, smaller guy, bigger guy, whatever, take him down low and make some really good reads. And I feel like I know that sometimes even for me, like I could be a little, I can throw around like great passer, good passer a little too easily at times just because they throw like a couple nice passes. But Sochan, like you can feel it. There's an intelligence to him that I like a lot. I feel like he makes a lot of quick and accurate reads wherever he has the ball. And I think the point that you just made, Corey, him being a guy that an NBA team could eventually trust to make the right decisions out of the short roll is interesting because there were even a couple of times when he was on the opposite end where he would run the pick and roll with Kendall Brown and he made some really, really nice passes. And I'm like, hey, man, that's good.
More of that, please.
I really enjoyed that. So
I like
the passing, the passing with him, I was like really intrigued. Some of like the weak side passes he was throwing, but especially the interior passes, I thought really savvy, really quick decisions that aren't always going to be made by guys. And actually, one thing, Corey, that I did want to say, I wanted to piggyback off what you said about his frame, that this kid is a giant kid. I thought. Now, you guys may feel differently. I thought Steven, you mentioned about him going to the rim and how you had some concerns. But something that I noticed, and I may be in the minority here, but I felt like he took some really good angles going to the basket. And I don't know if that's like savvy from playing with older dudes in Europe or whatever it is, but I thought he was really smart about leveraging his frame and his length and taking good angles and then finishing through contact or picking up fouls. And then, he would get like a layup or a foul or whatever. And then he would leverage that into making a really nice read the next possession or the next time he had the ball. So there's a really nice nuance to his offensive game that, once again, I'm never going to argue that I think he should be like a number one option, but there are nice little nuances and levels to his game that I think if you're looking at him as a third, fourth option on your team, he can add a lot of value by doing a lot of different things well, is kind of one of the overarching things that I have about Sochan as a player. So in terms of the passing, I think some of the interior stuff was really good. Some of the weak side reads was really good. Even with the ball in his hands, some of the live dribble decisions he was making, I liked. So yeah, sorry about the long rant, but yeah.
We like long rants here, Albert. We want detail. That's why you come here. So you listen to us ramble about one prospect for 1 hour at a time.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think he does take good angles. He's like crafty and smart, and like he's one of those guys who, again, like it's not sexy. It doesn't show up on the stat sheet all the time, but he's just doing intelligent things on the floor. Steven, where are you at on Sochan as a passer?
I mean, I think anyone that likes Sochan, even those who don't, would probably still give him credit as like a good playmaker for his position, right? And that's what I was kind of alluding to earlier in my breakdown at the next level is I don't think that Baylor used him enough in those types of opportunities. But where we did see him operate in that space, he showed that he's very effective at it. I think that he could even make more complex reads than a simple, set a screen, get the pass, take 2 dribbles, and kick it to an open corner. I think that he could do a little bit more than that. And that's what you were talking about earlier, Corey. I would love to see him in maybe some 4-5 pick and roll action at the next level, depending on the team that he goes to, or maybe an inverse like 4-1 pick and roll, where they can run, another flare screen off of that and have an open guy. And Sochan is the one, giving him the basket, right? So I like him as a playmaker. I think that is pretty simple. I actually want to talk a little bit more about the playmaking for a later segment because I have something cool that I want to share with you guys. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the playmaking that he does present at the next level.
Yeah, he's going to be a good connector. The kids are calling it these days.
Connective tissue piece.
Love the feel. Let's talk about the defense. Because I think that that's where his real value is at this point of his development and what is so intriguing about him. Let's start with just his on-ball defense. Where are you at with Sochan as an on-ball defender, Albert?
I like it a lot. I think we've mentioned the frame and the length. And guys, this is like a really niche thing. Maybe it's not a really niche thing. Maybe I'm like overdrawn.
Get niche with it, bro. Let's go.
He is terrifying when he traps the ball. Like if you get caught on the sideline or in the corner, you're effed because Sochan is so big, so strong, and so long. Like even in that UNC game, there's this one where he trapped the dude in the corner, and it was like, what is that guy supposed to do? It's over. It's absolutely over. And so that's like a little thing with him that I really enjoy. Like the guy is really long, great frame. I know whenever we talk about footwork, Metcalf doesn't like the guys who will like cross their feet and stuff like that. And I didn't feel like Sochan did that. I thought he did a really good job of staying in front of big guys, wings, guards. Like even going against guards, like I thought he did a really good job of sometimes like he'll get beat, but he will recover really well because he has the length and like the know-how, stuff like that. I thought he was like a little jumpy at times, could fall for a good head fake once in a while, but
no doubt.
It's cool. He's a young guy, and I think he'll clean that up. But if you're talking trajectory and potential and ceilings, I think defensively there's so much to like because we just talked about him being like really versatile offensively and he can do different things. But I think defensively too, there's a lot to like there simply because he's got the brain, he's got the length, he's got the frame. It's just a lot to like is what I'm trying to say.
Versatility is the name of the game with him for sure on the defensive end. It's funny you mentioned he's a little jumpy because I have that verbatim in my notes. You throw a pump fake at him, especially out on the perimeter on a closeout. Closeouts, he's very upright.
Yeah,
he's closing out. He doesn't get low. He doesn't necessarily have the choppy feet, and that makes him prone to being able to get blown by on the perimeter. So I do think he needs to clean that up. As a rebounder, similarly, I think he gets a little jumpy too. Instead of putting a body, sometimes he's a big body. He's long, so he is a good rebounder. But I do think that he was prone to, especially I think was it the UNC game I was watching, that he gave up a few offensive rebounds just because he was a little jumpy. But the versatility is crazy, man, because he's strong enough to bang in the post. He's big and long enough and moves well enough that like you could use him as a drop big eventually when he plays some small ball 5, which I think will happen. You've seen him guard the perimeter like red hot RJ Davis, and he's sticking with him, forcing him into a tough 3. So he could switch. He's scheme versatile. I think that, that's exactly what you want. And he's exactly the type of body and archetype that like every team is looking for. And if you can cover, 1 through 5 consistently, you're going to find minutes on an NBA floor, and that's going to be really enticing to NBA teams. So I am pretty all the way in on Sochan, even if he's not very like quick twitchy, right? Like he's not going to be able to like he can make up for the fact that he isn't quick twitchy because he's long, and recover. But he's certainly not one of those guys that can like if he gets all up in your shirt and he gets like blown by a little bit, like he'll recover with his speed. He's got to rely kind of on his instincts, his smarts, and his length. Steven, talk to me about your thoughts on him as a defender.
Yeah, and just another quick little draft evaluation buzzword we can throw out there. He's very scalable. I like that he's super scalable defensively. So malleable. I like him. Yes, very malleable. That's another good one. Another one will come to me probably after the show, but that's all I got right now. I like how scalable he is at the college level. Baylor runs him at the 5 a lot. And that's where you see that jumpiness, right? Because although he is, 6'8", 6'9", depending on who's measuring him that day, if he's going up a bit against a bigger guy, because he doesn't have, that vertical pop, he's not super quick twitchy. He doesn't have a great second jump either, which is where I think that he gets in trouble with giving up those, second chance points and things like that. That's where you're going to see the jumpiness is when he's going up against a larger guy. So I think him being able to play the 5 at the next level is going to be kind of matchup dependent. As far as like 1s and 2s go, I don't think that he's going to be able to stay with most 1s at the next level, but I will give him probably a range of like 2.5 to 4.5 because it's truly difficult for anybody at the next level to cover 1 through 5 all the time. Like it's supremely hard. It's going to be matchup dependent. And another area of his game, and he's super young and he can clean this up. And I think, when he gets to the NBA, better coaching, what have you, not that he's got a poor coach now, but more consistent professional level coaching. His help defense and switching, sometimes he gets a little confused as to who he should go to. And I think that that's something that he struggled with in particular against UNC when he and Thamba were they had some miscommunications, especially after timeouts, inbounds plays, things like that. But ultimately defensively, those long arms, he'll swallow somebody up, and it's very enticing. And that's something that I'm glad that Albert touched on was, when he traps, you're absolutely toast. You're done. Effed, as I think he said. But I do like him as a defender. I think that he projects well at the next level to defend a lot of different positions.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because I want to know if it's just me who felt this way. When he was guarding the weeks, actually, I'm going to need Corey to explain this to me because he's our resident coach here. So that thing, Corey, when you're defending on the weak side and you're like, let's say on the weak side, there are 2 shooters, like one in the corner, one kind of like on the wing. And like as a defender, you have one guy kind of like in between them. Is there like a splitting? Okay. Yep. I thought he was really good at that. I saw some possessions and I was like, oh, shit, like this is awesome. Like his head was like kind of like whizzing around, like really trying to like stay in between like his body, even, like they do that like really active shaking thing. And like he was like really engaged and like trying to stay in between those 2 guys. And then there was one where on the strong side, the guard like did like a jump pass and it was like a terrible pass. And Sochan just read that in between the 2 guys that he was trying to like splitting between, whatever. He just ripped a great steal. And I was like, oh, this freaking dope. Like I really enjoyed that. So wanted to ask you guys what you guys thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's funny because basketball is like so complex and difficult, but it's also like unbelievably easy. But it's like it's one of those things where it has to click for it to get before it becomes easy. And one of the most difficult things for young kids to figure out is like splitting the difference on the weak side and like staying home underneath the hoop. Like if you're like on the weak side, if you're the corner guy, right? And like in the NBA, that sets up the X out where if the ball skips to the weak side, that guy splitting the difference will take wherever the ball went, and the guy under the hoop will X out to the other guy, whether it's the corner
Right.
or the wing, right? And I think that Sochan's perfect for being able to do that. I think he's perfect for being able to pre-switch because I think that he's a guy that relies a lot on his IQ and his intelligence. And, you add in the size and the feel on the defensive end. And I think that, like I said, like the versatility goes beyond just being able to switch. It's knowing the schemes and being able to play in multiple schemes. And that's what is so intriguing about him to me as a defender, because I think that he's got potentially the whole package. Now, again, like sometimes on those skips where he's closing out, he's a little upright and he's a little jumpy, so it's not like
Yep.
he's perfect there. But just as a positioning from that perspective,
Yeah.
that's like way harder to have a prospect kind of understand than like, hey, chop your feet on that closeout, or close out shorter so you're not flying into the stands.
Yeah.
That stuff's easy. The positioning and stuff is a little bit harder. And maybe it's because of his weird upbringing, right? Like born in the States, moved to the UK, played in Germany, played for the Polish national team. I mean, like he's all over the place. He's getting all these opportunities to play like basketball and learn at higher levels. So maybe there's something to that. But I'm in on it.
Yeah, and I think that the struggles that I'm seeing now and the ones that I touched on, just to be, try to give like the entire picture, I think is definitely something that he can clean up, right? And I think too that, again, at the professional level, some of that switching, especially on the sidelines, like you're going to be going up against coaches who make a killing just from calling timeouts and running the perfect play. And I think that just from getting reps and understanding those formations and sets, the easy part, right, that Corey is talking about is the schematics, but the hard part's the execution and timing paired with athleticism at the next level. So I agree. I think that right now he is already such a phenomenal defender. In the areas that I have a little bit concerns about, I have no doubt that he's going to be able to sharpen those up.
Got it.
And he's so young, and
Right.
that's one of the things.
Very young.
You're betting on. It's it's one of the reasons, I think I personally have him above a guy like Tari Eason. It's and Tari Eason, this dude was unbelievably productive. Probably could have been even more productive if he was playing more minutes. Just had monster advanced stats. I mean, had an impact on winning. It's not like they were empty stats or anything. But he is a little bit older for his age group. And, we don't discriminate against age here. We love players that of all ages, all shapes, all sizes. But he's so young, still 18, going to be, barely 19 on draft night. So I'm going to ask you, Steven, what NBA team do you think that Jeremy Sochan gives you the best ROI?
Okay, so I nerded out a little bit on this because I was super excited to be on the show and I really want to do a good job. So what I did was I looked at our composite board first and I saw that we mocked him 14th. And then I went to Tankathon and went through a lottery simulator. I only did it once. I didn't go crazy. But teams that ranked 12 through 16 who I think would be in the ballpark of where he could get drafted are New York, Atlanta, Charlotte, Oklahoma City, and Houston. Of those teams, I like Charlotte, right? And despite that, I think that we all agree that they need a center. I like the defensive punch that he'll bring to this team, something that they desperately need. They need someone with a defensive identity. He gives them the opportunity to run some more versatile lineups where we could see him as a small ball five. Again, he can guard 2.5 to 4.5, in my opinion, depending on the matchup. He shores up their rotation because we know that Gordon Hayward has injury history and he's not necessarily the most reliable guy. So, in my opinion, he'd be like a perfect backup for him if he is injured or if for whatever reason his play starts deteriorating. You have a guy already waiting in the wings there. I like him with pick and rolls and pick and pops with ball. I think that would be terrifying. And I think, although I do understand the value of centers and I will advocate for centers as much as anybody, I do think that it's more difficult to find a Jeremy Sochan type player later in the draft than it would be at, like, say, 39, which is where Tankathon had the second round pick for Charlotte, where based on where we have guys, you could get a Christian Koloko, an Ishmael Kamagate, a Travion Williams, a Jalen Williams, again, based on our composite board. So I think if a Charlotte went and drafted a Jeremy Sochan and was able to get one of those aforementioned centers, I like that fit a lot out of the teams that are kind of in that range, I think, to draft a Jeremy Sochan.
It's funny. Charlotte's going to be one of those teams, kind of like Denver, where it's kind of hard to be like, this guy doesn't fit with LaMelo Ball.
Right.
That's kind of the benefit of getting a player who can kind of create at a I don't even have a vocabulary word, the kind of level that the
exponential.
Yeah, the creativity and just the way that he can connect everything together. That's what makes LaMelo so much fun. Albert, what team will give you the best return on investment?
I think due to recent history, I'm supposed to hate this team, but the Atlanta Hawks would be my choice. I would like to see him play for the Hawks because I'm imagining maybe they eventually finally move on from John Collins, and then you have Okongwu there with Hunter, Herder,
Jalen Johnson.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about Jalen Johnson, but fine,
Probably
I'll put him in there.
Mini LeBron, right? Isn't that
the same way as Nate McMillan? Apparently, is how you feel about it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But I like that. I like that wing rotation, and obviously they've struggled defensively all season long. So hopefully Sochan gets in there and he's versatile and doing all kinds of stuff for them on both ends of the court. And then you have this young, freaking fun front court, and then you have Herder coming in to shoot threes, and you've got Bogdanovich, and you've got a lot going on. And hopefully one day, man, Sharif Cooper becomes that backup point guard who gets a good chunk of minutes, and he's creating and doing fun stuff. So yeah, once again, I'm supposed to say F Trae Young every time I have an opportunity, right? But
you're free. Do it.
I
Fuck that guy.
Yeah. But Sochan seems like the right choice here. I like Sochan on the Hawks, man, as much as I am supposed to hate that team.
And I'm going to go with a 13. I'm going to go with the New York Knicks.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you. I didn't want to say it.
Here's the thing. I know that the Knicks plate has been point guard. We need a point guard. We need a point guard. We need a point guard. But you know what else the Knicks need? Versatile players.
That's right.
The Knicks don't have a ton of switchy, versatile guys. They just don't. And they don't have many, switchy, versatile wings. They traded for Cam Reddish, so I guess you can count him as one of those type of players. But Cam Reddish has not been the beacon of consistency since he's left high school. He has, his time spent in college at Duke, he has been this guy that is hot and cold, and you don't know what you're going to get for him. I love his defense. I love the flashes, but who knows? You might only get flashes out of him for his whole career. You might want somebody steady. I think it's one of the reasons that Tibbs rides Taj so much, because Taj is, besides being a veteran who knows what he's doing on the floor most of the time, he could play.
And is the adopted son of Tibbs.
Correct. Tibbs is very loyal. I bet Jimmy Butler and Tibbs were texting last night about how much of a douche Spoelstra is. But I think that's why he rides Taj Gibson, because Taj knows how to play with Mitchell Robinson. He knows how to play with Obi. He knows how to play with Julius Randle. You can slot him in anywhere. Outside of RJ Barrett, how many multi-position players do you have? I guess Alec Burks this year because he's playing point guard, but there's just not a lot of guys, that can go up and down the lineup. And the Knicks don't have any of those kind of wings that I think you need in the modern NBA. Now, I do think that Julius Randle makes it a little bit difficult for that to happen, because I don't think he's proven he could play the 5 much. But I think the Knicks need a guy like Jeremy Sochan, who, especially this year, you see the defense struggle a little bit, help out with the defense, doesn't need the ball, isn't going to take it away from RJ. Not the cleanest fit as a floor spacer, but, you got Quentin Grimes, you got the all-time New York Knicks three-pointer leader in Evan Fournier. So I think that a guy like Jeremy Sochan is somebody that the Knicks, if they're in position to, I think he would be a good target.
I mean, if I can, Corey, just being the resident Knick fan, I do want to follow up that by saying I love it because look at what's happened to our defense this year. Who did we lose defensively? That's causing a lot of trouble for us. It's not because Nerlens Noel is hurt, or you can't blame this on Mitchell Robinson. It's because we lost Reggie Bullock. Reggie Bullock was our number one perimeter defender at 6'7", 6'8", with his length and what he was. I mean, also he was a smart defender. I know people are he was a 3-point shooter or whatever. Like, his shooting was an added bonus, but his main thing was he was our best perimeter defender. And we lost that. And we traded that for Fournier. And I love Fournier. I actually like Fournier a lot, but Fournier is not a defender. I think he just kind of punts that side of the ball at times.
It's bad. It's very bad.
It's really bad at times. Like some of the crap he does, it's like, okay,
detrimental.
Cool. It is. It is. And adding Sochan to be Sochan being a multi-positional defender would help this team a lot. So I love it, Corey. I was talking to my boy Josh Bice last night.
Shout out Josh Bice.
The miracle. Shout out Josh Bice. The miracle we're praying for.
That feast you guys were eating, man. I've seen on that was legit.
Yeah. Yeah, we live for the IG, right? But we're still praying for an Ivy miracle that we somehow the frozen balls, no more frozen envelopes, but the frozen balls go the right way and we end up in the top 3 or 4 and we get Ivy. But Sochan would be a nice consolation.
Look, keep that Ivy dream alive.
Yeah.
If you're not going to secret it, put it out into the universe and manifest.
Let's go. Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, he'd be electric at the Garden. Albert, it's that time. I want you to sell me this pen on Jeremy Sochan.
All right, here we go. First off, this segment is brought to you by a sponsor. One day is where we're at right now. We don't have a pen sponsor yet, but Pilot, Bic, Sharpie, you guys are all listening.
You could be sponsoring this segment.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, okay? This is a great segment that we do. But anyway, okay, I'm going to sell you this pen. I'm going to sell you, you know what pen I'm going to sell you right now, Corey? Remember when we were in school, there was the white top, blue bottom pen where you can click the green or the red or the blue or the black, right? Jeremy Sochan is that pen. It's not the best freaking pen, right? You want the best writing feel, whatever, you'll go with an Atlantis pen, or you're going to go with the fine point Sharpie or a Pilot or a Dr. Grip, right? But that little white and blue pen is very important to keep with you in your pencil case, because that fool, you can write in different colors, in blue and red, whatever, all these different colors. Jeremy Sochan is exactly that for an NBA team. It's not going to be your first choice pen, but you're going to need a pen who can do a lot of different things at once, right? And is effective enough where, hey, if you just need a black pen, you can even use that pen just to write in black, right? Jeremy Sochan is going to defend for you. He's going to defend multiple positions. Offensively, he's going to do stuff for you where hopefully his shooting continues to develop. He's going to be a screener for you, a roller for you. He can even be small ball 5, just stand in the dunker spot. We saw him do that for Baylor too. Got a lot of easy dunks at the rim, just standing around in the dunker spot. He's a guy who brings a lot of versatility to your team, but isn't going to be your number one. So that is the pen that I'm trying to sell you today.
Let's go. You can grade papers with it.
Hell yeah.
You can, you can color the drawings on the back of the binder in it.
You can trace your hand with it. I'm a big fan of hand turkeys, you know.
There's so many things. It's very versatile.
Superman logos, different colors. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The classic. And it's an S. What a perfect fitting
for Sochan.
Wow. Sochan. Amazing.
All right, Steven. We gave you an assignment. If you're buying stock in Jeremy Sochan, who may you have bought stock in previously?
And just to continue the nerdy trajectory that I went on for preparations and coming onto the show, I want to open with a query that I ran on Bartorvik. So Sochan is one of 2 freshmen in the Bartorvik database, and this dates all the way back to 2008, who has a box plus minus of greater than or equal to 7, an offensive rating of greater than or equal to 100, a defensive rating of less than or equal to 90, a usage rating of greater than or equal to 20, an assist percentage of greater than or equal to 10, a defensive rebounding percentage of greater than or equal to 20, a block percentage of greater than or equal to 3, and a steal percentage of greater than or equal to 2. One of only 2 freshmen to ever do that. The other, Terrence Jones of the University of Kentucky. So just to set everyone's hopes super duper high. But hey, I mean, the man made it in the league and he played for a long time. Not here to slight Terrence Jones. With that out of the way, I thought that would be a great lead in. I see shades of, and I'm not like super big into comps, but I think that it's useful sometimes whenever you're looking to see like how this guy could fit on a team. And there's 2 players that I see shades of, and one of them I think we've seen perpetuated out a lot is Boris Diaw. The other one that I came up with that I'm super proud of that I can't wait for y'all's response, and I'm stalling on purpose. Andre Kirilenko of the Utah Jazz, I think is a very interesting comp. A guy who is projected to be a big wing, could also give you minutes at other front court positions. He ended up being a reliable 3-point shooter, but wasn't initially, and a tremendous, versatile, scalable defender on multiple front court positions. So, and also not a bad playmaker either, right? So I think that Andre Kirilenko, Boris Diaw kind of love child is what I imagine Jeremy Sochan being.
Well done. Very well
Thank
done.
you.
It's an interesting
Not
comp.
Terrence Jones.
I really thought that based on that, I was like, oh, what is he going to say? Like Zion or something?
Right. Terrence Jones.
You had me on the edge.
Very good college player.
Albert.
I can't recover from the Terrence Jones. Like he just like banged out like 9 different stats, 12 different stats, and it led to Terrence Jones. Respect to you, Steven. You came ready to rock, man. I love it. Okay.
I'm so excited to be here, guys.
For me, you guys are not gonna love this one. This is a guy that
Did I steal your Terrence Jones thunder? Were you coming in with that?
No. My comps are generally weird. I finally found somebody on Twitter that actually likes my comps. I actually forgot your name, sir, but I'm so sorry. I think he's like a professor somewhere, but he likes my comps, and I was like, dude, I vibe with you, bro. But anyway,
which Nick is it?
No, actually, it is a former Nick.
Beautiful.
I believe that this player was way ahead of his time. He wasn't coached properly. He didn't know what the NBA was going to turn into. I believe that if he played now, his shooting he really would have worked on his shooting and been a better shooter. I think if he ate more food, he would have been a bigger man as well, just like physically in terms of frame. Please don't kill me for this one. But I thought a much better, beefier Jared Jeffries was where my mind went.
Okay.
Okay. So, hear me out. Jared Jeffries was a guy.
He had the one little run.
I really thought that like Jared Jeffries, if he was born a little bit later and just like did the right nutritional stuff and worked on shooting more, like I really enjoyed Jared Jeffries as a defender. Like he had no problem guarding guards. He was a really versatile defender. He could pass a little bit. There were like little things that Jared Jeffries did on the floor. I know like every Knicks fan is going to probably want to crucify me for this because he didn't have a great Knicks career, but even on the Knicks, I was like, yeah, come on, Jared, give me a little bit more. I enjoyed it. I didn't hate it. So I'm thinking like really good, really, really good, like 1% outcome Jared Jeffries is kind of where my head went. So that's that.
Is that better than Terrence Jones?
I have no idea.
Yes.
Okay.
Question mark? I don't know. I see where you're going with that. I think I went a little bit more on the nose, kind of a little more modern. Definitely shades of, not 1-to-1. There are certainly some differences. I went with like Patrick Williams mixed with Pat Smear, which is a joke that's probably reserved for myself and Kyle Mann. Pat Smear is one of the legendary guitarists of the Germs and of Nirvana fame. Maybe you've heard of them. Based on his cool punk rock tattoos and hair. But if you look at the circumstance of Jeremy Sochan, you look at the circumstance of Patrick Williams in college, and then you go back and you look at the minutes played, the numbers, they're very similar. all the way down to Patrick Williams was a 32% 3-point shooter in college. And now you look at him and you feel pretty comfortable when he lets it fly. The difference, Patrick Williams was also a good free throw shooter in college. So there was more, I think, to, project forward as a shooter. But Patrick Williams wasn't one of these really flashy guys coming into the draft. That's why it was kind of a surprise that he ended up going 4th when he did. Obviously there was that buzz that Detroit really wanted him at 7. And then, a couple of days leading up to the draft, it was like, he might go, top 5. But previous to that, he was thought of as kind of a back-end lottery guy. He didn't have that buzz because he has a very quiet game, a very quiet demeanor. That's kind of why people compared him to Kawhi. He would every now and then he'd bust out like a little like mid-range combo move that made you go, the fuck was that? That was amazing. But he didn't do it consistently enough. And that's how I feel every time I watch our pal Jeremy bust out one of his little spin moves into either a finish or like a midi. So I think like he's almost a little under the radar, even though he's getting some love. And I know that, especially when you're following the draft, the whole cycle, like you start to see the consensus, and when you see the consensus, it starts feeling like, oh, well, there's no way that AJ Griffin doesn't go in the 5 to 7 range. There's no way that Keegan Murray doesn't go top 5 now. There's no way that, Benedict Mathurin doesn't go, top
Number
10.
1.
And, and then draft night happens and, Josh Giddey goes number 6 to OKC and everyone's like, whoa, or Josh Primo goes in the lottery and just weird stuff happens, right? I think Sochan's going to be that guy. I think not only is he going to be in the top 10, I think a team's going to get him in. I think his jumper, like if he gets hot in a workout, a team is going to look at his experience, his build, his fit in the modern NBA, and they're going to be like, I'm fucking taking this kid at 7. And I think he's going high. He's one of those dudes that I think is going to be the guy who surprises. He's going to have a fucking dope draft fit with cool like pink hair, and all of a sudden we're going to be like, he's going to be a star now. And that's kind of why I'm going with the Pat Williams. I think he's on that kind of trajectory.
Corey, then can I give you one more comp from last year that I think makes a lot of sense with everything that you just said?
Oh, absolutely.
Franz Wagner. I think Franz Wagner is worth being in that discussion too. Wagner really, really, really versatile defensively, right? And he kind of came in ready to play on an NBA level mentally, right? Knew the game, felt the game. Obviously, had a different freshman experience. Yeah, international experience, right? Had a different experience in college than Sochan did, but I think Wagner went 8th last year, right? So I could see that happening with Sochan too. So yeah, that's another one I think.
I think it's a good call, and it's also a good reason not to overreact to the NCAA tournament when
that's another thing. Yeah,
somebody goes out on a bad performance, and I don't think Sochan did. By the way, I think even though he didn't shoot the ball particularly well, he was very impactful and a big reason why Baylor even made that comeback. But just for some of our other friends like Keegan Murray, maybe Chet. Some of these guys who you're looking at and going, well, they didn't really show out. It's fine. Look at the full body. All right, fellas, we did it.
Yes,
we
sir.
Just did an hour on Jeremy Sochan, and I had a lot of fun. Steven, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks y'all for having me, man. This was fun. I'm glad to get to make my debut. I would like to think that we all learned a little bit of something, whether or not it was about Jared Jeffries, Terrence Jones, Andre Kirilenko. It doesn't matter. We all learned a little bit of something here today. Again, I had a lot of fun. Hopefully I earned my keep and I will make another appearance somewhere down the line. But, appreciate y'all rocking with me today.
Yeah, you know what? We have like 54 members of No Ceilings now. So, you now get put
Did we lose a couple?
You get you get sent to the back of the queue, so you'll be on probably in like 2024 at this point.
2 seasons, yeah. Okay.
We have.
That's
but
okay.
You'll definitely be back. Tell our listeners where they can find your work and your social media. They can follow you.
Yeah, so if you want to follow me, you can do so on Twitter. That's where I'm most active, at Stephen G Hoops. So that's Stephen with the PH, G Hoops. You can listen to me co-host the Draft Deeper podcast now with a good friend of all of us here, Nathan Grubel. Just started co-hosting with him like last week. Like pretty much as soon as I joined No Ceilings, I started co-hosting with Nathan. And then I have some written work, whether it's collaborative with everybody on the team or the one piece of the Weekend Warrior that I debuted. That's on NoCeilingsNBA.com. And that's pretty much it.
Love it. Let's go. Been awesome
Yes,
having
sir.
you on the team. Albert, where can the people find you?
You guys can find me at Alberto Gim, is my handle on Twitter. Also at GTGNBA. I guess that's like my burner, I guess. I have no idea. But I do want to say, dude, having Steven on today means a lot to me because Steven is the only human being who asked me to be on his pod. But when he wasn't a part of No Ceilings, that's the only time I've ever been like as a guest on a pod. So
and you insulted me within like the first minute of being on the show. So I really appreciate the kind return that I got.
No, you guys have to know it. Like being on Steven's show back when you were doing Draft Capital, I really actually had a great time on that pod, and it was really awesome. And Steven's a great host, and he's killing it now with Nathan with Draft Deeper and with us and No Ceilings. So I did want to give you a proper shout out with that. Do you want to also let you guys know, of course, and I also want to let you guys know I'm working on a piece finally for next week. I haven't written in a while, but I'm going to be writing about Dalen Terry, my love affair with Dalen Terry.
Oh yeah.
And
boy.
I know today KOC was on the Rosillo pod, and Rosillo was like, "Hey, like, am I crazy for liking this Terry kid?" And he's like, "He's cool."
Terry's
KOC was
cool.
like, "He's cool." And I was like, "Damn, fool! Like, that's not right. Like, Dalen Terry is not just cool. This kid is freaking awesome." So
ice cold.
Yeah.
You
So
gotta,
guys,
you gotta
if
forgive KOC, man. He's coming out with like first round big boards. Like, us in the draft world, we've been doing this for months and months and months. He's been on his NBA grind. He's just getting into the draft. He's just getting into it.
I get
that was
it.
me last year.
So my place in the world right now is to shine some light on Dalen Terry. I feel like that's kind of been one of my roles with Nick. Nick's done it a lot more than I have for our site, but just finding weirdos and talking about them. So I'll be talking about Terry because I love this dude.
I can't wait to read that. He's one of the more intriguing guys.
I love him so much.
Like, he's a name that not a lot of people have been talking about, but he could be one of those sneaky like lottery guys at the end of this whole process, which is amazing. So I'm excited to read that. You could find, my written work, NoCeilingsNBA.com. We just released the draft rankings, top 55, the stock update for the consensus top 55 around the World Wide Web, based on, all the different big boards from the mainstream outlets, including No Ceilings. So, even though at No Ceilings we collaborate on our big board, which is, 10 people deep, which gives us, it takes away any personal bias we may have with certain prospects, adding some of these other outlets gives a real clear picture of how the internet at large is perceiving these guys. So I think that it's a valuable thing to check out if you're into rankings. And if subscribe to the podcast, give us a rating if you haven't yet. That would be dope as fuck. Or don't. It's up to you. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. But if you're listening still as we ramble on for an hour and 10 minutes and you haven't done that yet, yeah, why not? You've been here.
Make it worth your while.
That's what I'm saying.
Love us.
Get your money's worth here. And you can follow me on Twitter at Corey Tulliba. And we got big things coming at No Ceilings. So at No Ceilings NBA, follow the whole crew. You're going to see a bunch of ridiculous memes made by the minister of memes, Tyler Rucker himself, as we flow into this draft process as March Madness comes to an end. That's it, guys. We're done rambling. We out. Peace.